The alien marketplace was loud and crowded, voices echoing from every corner. Merchants shouted about their goods. Strange lights glowed from stalls. And the smell of spices and oils filled the air, but the noise quickly fell silent when she appeared. A young alien girl walked slowly into the market. Her name was Lyra. She was small, with silver hair that shone under the sun. Her eyes were bright violet, and her clothes were simple, but what walked beside her made everyone freeze. In fear, it was her pet, a beast taller than any man. Its body was covered in dark scales that shimmered like metal. Its eyes burned with a deep red glow, and sharp teeth flashed every time it opened its mouth. Its claws scraped the ground, leaving marks behind. People backed away at once. Merchants pulled their children close, guards gripped their weapons, and some even shut down their stalls. The crowd whispered in fear, "The beast is here. Keep your distance." Others muttered, "That monster killed soldiers before. No one should go near it." Lyra kept her head down. She was used to this, everywhere she went. People looked at her with the same fear. They did not see her as a girl. They only saw the terrifying beast by her side. She held tightly to the rope tied around its neck, even though she knew the rope meant nothing. The creature obeyed only her. Then came the human. His name was Daniel, a soldier sent from Earth. He was new to this world, and unlike the others, he did not run when he saw the beast. He stood tall, watching carefully as the crowd scattered. His hand rested on his weapon, but he did not draw it. His calm face made him look out of place in the sea of panic. The beast stopped walking. Its glowing eyes locked on Daniel. The crowd held its breath. Waiting for blood to be spilled, a growl rumbled deep inside the creature's chest. The air grew heavy, like a storm about to break. Lyra felt her heart race. She pulled the rope, whispering, "Core, no. Stay calm." The beast flicked its tail. Muscles tense. She turned to the human, expecting him to finally run like everyone else, but Daniel didn't move. He did something no one had ever done before. He slowly knelt down. His weapon stayed at his side. His hands open, empty. He looked at the beast with steady eyes. "You're not a monster, are you?" he said softly. His voice was calm, almost gentle. The crowd gasped. Some shouted, "He's mad. He'll die." Others whispered, "What is he doing?" No one talks to that thing. Core, the beast, tilted its massive head. Its growl faded into silence. It sniffed the air, taking in the scent of the human. Daniel did not flinch. He stayed still, showing no fear. Lyra's violet eyes widened. She had never seen this before. All her life, people screamed and ran, or pointed weapons at Core. No one had ever dared to kneel. No one had ever spoken kindly. For a moment, time felt frozen. The girl, the beast, and the human stood in the middle of the silent marketplace. The crowd waited, their hearts racing. Would the beast attack, or would something impossible happen? Core stepped forward, one heavy clawed foot after another. The ground shook slightly under its weight. It lowered its head, eyes glowing brighter. As it sniffed closer to Daniel's face, its hot breath blew against his skin. Daniel smiled faintly. His heart was beating fast. But he did not let the fear show. "That's it, big guy," he whispered. "You're not as scary as they think, are you?" The beast blinked slowly, then pulled back without attacking. The silence around the marketplace broke into shocked murmurs. No one could believe what they had just seen. Lyra stared at the human. Her grip on the rope loosened. She had always believed Core hated everyone but her. But now, this strange human stood calmly before the beast. Alive and unharmed, her lips parted as she whispered, "Why aren't you afraid?" Daniel looked up at her, his eyes steady and kind. "Because fear blinds people," he answered. "I see something different." The crowd was confused. Some still muttered in fear. But others looked at Daniel with awe. A human soldier had just done what no alien dared to do. He had faced the terrifying pet and lived for Lyra. Something inside her heart shifted. For the first time, she felt that she and her companion were not completely alone. Someone saw more than just a monster. But she also felt something else is strange. Dangerous spark. Because if the crowd saw what had happened, then the rumors would spread, and not all who heard the story would be pleased. The marketplace slowly came back to life, but the air was different. A new story had begun. One that no one could ignore, and in the center of it stood a human. An alien girl and a beast feared by all. The marketplace still buzzed with whispers long after the beast stepped back. People could not believe what they had witnessed. The terrifying pet had spared the human, and the human had shown no fear. Children peered out from behind their parents. Guards lowered their weapons, but kept their distance. And merchants leaned forward to see more. Lyra stood frozen, her hand clutching the rope tied around Kor's neck. Her heart raced as she stared at Daniel. For years she had walked this path alone, surrounded by fear and hate. And now, a single human soldier had broken the pattern. She wanted to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Daniel rose slowly from the ground. His calm eyes stayed on the beast, not on the frightened crowd. He dusted his knees and then stretched out his hand. Not to the girl, but to Kor. The crowd gasped again. Certain death, they thought. He was offering his hand to a monster. Kor lowered his head. His nostrils flared as he sniffed Daniel's palm. The beast's growl returned, deep and rumbling, but softer than before. Its glowing eyes studied the human carefully. Then, instead of attacking, it leaned forward and pressed its scaled snout against the soldier's hand. A wave of shock ran through the crowd. Some cried out, "Impossible!" Others whispered, "The beast accepted him." The guards exchanged worried looks. They had never seen such a thing. Lyra's violet eyes widened even more. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "He listens to you." Daniel gave a small smile. "No," he said softly. "He listens to you. I'm just showing him I mean no harm." His voice carried enough strength that even the nearest merchants heard his words. For the first time, Lyra truly looked at the human. His hair was dark, his face sharp but calm. His armor was scratched from past battles, but his posture was steady. He was not a man looking for glory. He was a man looking for truth. Kor pulled back slightly, but did not growl again. The beast stood beside Lyra, still protective, but no longer hostile. It was as if Daniel had broken a wall that no one else dared to touch. "Who are you?" Lyra asked quietly. Her voice was a mix of suspicion and wonder. "Daniel," he replied. "Just a soldier passing through." He glanced at Kor, then back at her. "And who are you?" Her shoulders stiffened. For a moment, she looked down, as if ashamed. "I am Lyra," she answered, "and this is Kor." She stroked the beast's neck, her small hand brushing against the hard scales. "He is my only friend." The words struck Daniel. He could hear the loneliness buried in her voice. He looked around at the crowd. Every face filled with fear and hatred. He realized what she meant. She was isolated not because of who she was, but because of the creature that loved her. "You're not alone anymore," Daniel said softly. His voice was steady, not a promise, but a truth. Lyra blinked at him, her heart thudding in her chest. She had never heard those words before. Everyone else told her she was cursed, dangerous, untouchable. But this human, he spoke as if she mattered, as if Kor mattered. The beast shifted its weight, watching the human with slow, curious movements. It did not growl, it did not strike. It simply stood tall. Its tail swaying like a warning, yet without violence. The connection was fragile, like a thin thread, but it was there. Daniel opened his pack. He pulled out a ration bar, plain and dull. But food nonetheless. Slowly, he unwrapped it and held it out, not to Lyra, but to Kor, hungry. He asked gently. The crowd gasped again. "He's insane," someone muttered. "That thing will tear his arm off." But no one moved to stop him. They were too fascinated to look away. Kor sniffed the food. His jaws opened slightly, sharp teeth glinting in the sunlight. Lyra's heart almost stopped. She wanted to scream for him to step back. But before she could, the beast leaned forward and took the ration bar carefully from Daniel's hand. It chewed slowly, then let out a low sound, not a growl, but almost a purr. The marketplace fell silent once more. This was no longer fear. This was disbelief. The feared beast, the terror of soldiers and citizens, had eaten calmly from a human's hand. Daniel chuckled lightly. "See," he said, "not so bad." Lyra stared at him, her lips parting. "How?" She whispered. "Why do you treat him like that? He is feared by all. They call him a monster. They say he is cursed." Daniel's eyes softened. "Because I know what fear does," he replied. "Fear makes people blind. It makes them see danger where there is none. It makes them strike first before they even understand. But when you stop fearing, you can see the truth." Her chest tightened. Those words touched something deep inside her. For so long, she had carried the weight of hate and fear. Now, for the first time, someone spoke words that gave her hope. The crowd slowly began to move again, whispering louder now. Some still glared, convinced the human was dangerous. Others looked uncertain, wondering if their fears had been lies all along. But not everyone would accept what they had seen. In the corner of the marketplace, a pair of shadowed figures watched carefully, their eyes narrow, their hands resting on hidden weapons. One of them whispered, "The beast has chosen another." This changes everything. Lyra did not see them. Her eyes were fixed on the human before her. Her heart beat faster with every passing second. She did not understand it yet, but she knew something had shifted in her world. Daniel gave her a calm smile. And for the first time in her life, she returned it. The bond had begun, fragile but undeniable, the girl, the beast, and the humans standing together in a world that would not understand. The sun began to lower in the alien sky, throwing long shadows across the market. People still whispered about what they had seen. Some called it madness, others called it a miracle. But in the center of all the noise stood three figures: a girl, her beast, and the human who had dared to face them. Lyra looked at Daniel with wide violet eyes. Her heart still pounded. She could not forget the sight of Kor lowering his head to a stranger. For years, the beast had obeyed only her, trusted only her, and attacked anyone who came too close. Yet here was a human, calm and steady, who broke the rule without force. Kor stood quietly beside her. His massive tail swayed slowly, his glowing red eyes were fixed on Daniel, but they did not hold rage. They held curiosity. For the first time, Lyra noticed that Kor seemed almost calm, as if waiting to see what Daniel would do next. Daniel gave a small nod. "He's not so different from us," he said softly. "He just protects what he loves." His words were simple, but they carried weight. Lyra's lips trembled. "Everyone fears him." She whispered, "They say he is a monster, a killer, but he has always been my guardian, my only friend." She reached out and brushed her hand along Kor's scales. The beast rumbled in response, a low sound that was not a growl, but a comfort. Daniel watched carefully. His eyes softened. Maybe the real monsters are the ones who never tried to understand him, he said. His gaze shifted briefly to the crowd that still lingered, whispering behind their hands. Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest. No one had ever spoken like this before. She looked at him, trying to read his face, wondering if he was truly different. Daniel reached into his pack once more, pulling out another small ration. This time, he broke it in two. He offered one half. To Kor and the other to Lyra, friends share food, he said with a small smile. Her breath caught. She hesitated, staring at the small piece of human food in his hand. Then, slowly, she reached out and took it. Her fingers brushed against his for just a moment, and her cheeks warmed. She quickly pulled back. But the moment left her unsettled. Kor bent down and took the other piece gently from Daniel's hand. His jaws snapped softly as he chewed. The great beast lowered his head afterward and let out a soft huff. Almost like approval, the crowd gasped. This was the second time the beast had accepted food from the human. Some people stepped back further. Frightened, others leaned closer. Drawn by curiosity, Lyra ate the food quietly, her eyes never leaving. Daniel. She wanted to ask questions, so many questions. But her voice trembled too much. Finally, she managed. Why? Why do you not fear him like the others? Daniel looked at her, his dark eyes calm. Because fear is a choice, he said, and I choose to trust. Even if it is dangerous. Her lips parted, her chest felt tight. Trust. It was a word she had almost forgotten. The world never trusted her, never trusted Kor. But this human offered it so freely. Kor moved suddenly, lowering his massive head closer to Daniel. The crowd cried out. Some even raised weapons again. But Daniel did not move. He stood steady, his hand resting gently against the beast's snout. The contact was brief but powerful. Kor did not attack. He accepted it. Lyra's eyes filled with shock. She whispered, He trusts you. Daniel nodded. And I trust him. He said simply. Lyra's throat tightened. She did not know why tears threatened to rise in her eyes. But she quickly blinked them away. No one had ever treated Kor as more than a monster. No one had ever seen her as more than the girl cursed to walk with him, until now. As the last rays of sunlight fell, the crowd began to scatter. Some muttered angrily, others left in silence, but a few stayed behind, watching with wary eyes. Lyra noticed the stares and lowered her head. She was used to it. But Daniel stood tall. As if he did not care, he looked at her again. You shouldn't carry this burden alone, he said. If you want, I can walk with you. Her heart skipped a beat. No one had ever offered that. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her mind raced. Was this kindness real, or was it another illusion that would fade? But Kor made the choice for her. The beast stepped forward. Placing his massive body between Daniel and the rest of the market, his tail swished. His claws dug into the ground, not in threat, but in protection. Daniel chuckled softly. I think. He already decided for you, he said. For the first time in years, Lyra smiled. It was small, fragile, but real. Her voice was quiet as she whispered, then maybe we are not alone anymore. The night settled over the city. But something new had been born in the silence. A fragile bond of trust between a human, an alien girl, and the beast feared by all. And though none of them knew it yet, this bond would soon change everything. Asterisk nights spread across the alien city. The bright marketplace lights dimmed, and the sounds of trade faded into silence. Only a few patrol guards walked the streets now, their weapons close at hand, but even in the quiet whispers about the human and the beast still moved from mouth to mouth like fire. Some spoke with wonder, saying the human was brave. Others muttered in fear, warning that a dangerous bond had been formed. And in the farthest corner of the city, in the shadow of tall black towers, a different group listened closely. Inside a hidden chamber, 3 figures sat around a metal table. Their faces were sharp and cruel, their eyes narrow and calculating. They were members of the faction that thrived on fear, traitors of war and power. They had heard of Kor before. They had tried many times to capture the beast, to chain him, to turn him into a weapon. But always the creature escaped. Always it. Followed the alien girl. Now one of the men slammed his fist onto the table. A human soldier has earned the trust of the beast, he growled. This is no longer just a girl's curse. This is a threat, if he bonds with the monster. No one will stand against them. Another leaned forward, his lips curling. Then we must strike now. Before their trust grows stronger, we cannot allow the human to change how people see the beast. The leader nodded slowly, his eyes like cold stone. We will take the creature and the girl too if needed. The human will not live long enough to stand in our way. Far from their secret meeting, Daniel walked with Lyra through the quiet streets. Kor moved beside them, his claws tapping against the stone path. The beast's eyes glowed faintly in the dark, keeping watch for threats. Daniel glanced around, sensing tension in the air. People were watching us today, he said, his voice low. Lyra pulled her cloak tighter around herself. They always watch, she whispered. But today felt different. Some of the looks were filled with anger, not just fear. He nodded. His soldier instinct sharp. Fear always breeds anger, he said, and anger breeds violence. She lowered her head, sadness in her voice. I never asked for this life. I never wanted Kor to be hated. He has protected me since I was a child. He is gentle with me, but no one else will see it. Daniel glanced at the beast, watching. As Kor walked with careful steps, every movement, alert and ready. Maybe they will see one day. He said, but until then, I'll stand with you. Her violet eyes lifted. Shining faintly in the dark, for a moment she almost forgot the fear. Almost forgot the whispers, high above, hidden in the shadows of the rooftops. Two mercenaries watched them, their cloaks blended with the night. Their weapons ready, one whispered. The orders are clear. Watch, follow, and when the time is right, strike. The other nodded, keeping his eyes fixed on the beast. His hands trembled slightly. For even hardened fighters feared Kor, but greed was stronger than fear. The pay for capturing such a creature would be beyond measure. As Daniel, Lyra, and Kor walked, the beast suddenly stopped. His head lifted, his nose flaring as he sniffed. The air, a low growl rumbled in his throat. Daniel's hand went to his weapon at once. His eyes scanned the shadows. We're being followed, he said quietly. Lyra's heart pounded. She looked around, seeing nothing, but trusting both Daniel and Kor, she whispered. They will not stop. They will never stop. Daniel placed himself between her and the nearest alley. His voice steady, then let them try. They'll learn this isn't as easy as they think. Kor growled again, his eyes glowing brighter in the dark. The hidden mercenaries froze, realizing the beast had caught their scent. They slipped back into the shadows, disappearing into the night. Daniel kept his weapon ready until the growls faded. Then he looked at Lyra. They'll come for you. And for him, he said firmly. But I won't let them take either of you, her. Throat tightened, emotions swirled in her chest. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to hold on to those words. For years, she had carried the weight of fear alone. Now, someone else carried it with her. Later that night, they found a small shelter at the edge of the city. Daniel lit a small fire, its glow flickering against the walls. Lyra sat close to Kor, resting her head against the beast's side. His body was warm, his presence comforting. Daniel sat across from them, sharpening his blade with slow, steady strokes. His eyes stayed on the door. Always watching, always alert. He was a soldier even in rest. After a long silence, Lyra spoke, her voice soft. Why do you help us? You could leave, you could live without this danger, yet you stay. Daniel looked at her, his expression calm but firm. Because it's the right thing to do, he said. You don't abandon those who need you. her eyes filled with something she could not name. Gratitude, fear, hope, all mixed together. She whispered, "Then maybe I am not cursed after all." Kor let out a low rumble. Not of warning, but of comfort. The firelight glowed in his red eyes, making him look less like a monster and more like a guardian, outside in the shadows beyond the fire's light. More eyes watched. The mercenaries had returned, hidden and patient. They would not strike tonight. But soon, very soon, they would. And as the night deepened, Daniel felt it too. The sense of danger pressing closer, he tightened his grip on his blade. Knowing the peace of this moment would not last long. The night was deep and silent. Only the faint crackle of the fire filled the small shelter where Daniel, Lyra, and Kor rested. Outside, the city was quiet. But the shadows moved with hidden danger, for the mercenaries had not left. They were waiting, watching, ready to strike. Daniel leaned against the wall, half awake, half alert. His soldier's instincts never allowed him to sleep fully. His hand rested on his weapon. His eyes scanned the flickering shadows at the edge of the firelight. He had felt it all evening. The calm was only temporary. Lyra slept with her head against Kor's warm scales. The beast curled around her protectively, his glowing red eyes half shut, but never fully closed. His deep rumbling breaths were steady, yet his muscles remained tense. He too sensed the danger nearby. In the distance, silent figures moved closer. For mercenaries crept along the walls, their boots soft against the stone. They carried shock restraints, long chains designed to weaken and bind large creatures. They had used them before to capture war beasts, and they believed they could use them again. The leader of the group signaled with his hand. Pointing toward the girl, two men nodded and prepared to grab her while the other two unrolled the restraints. For Kor, their plan was simple: seize the girl to distract the beast, then trap it while it raged. But Kor's senses were sharper than they knew. His nose twitched, his ears flicked, his glowing eyes snapped open. And a low growl rumbled from his chest. The sound shook the walls of the shelter. Daniel's eyes opened instantly. He sat up, weapon in hand. "They're here," he said calmly. His voice was steady, but inside, his blood raced. Before Lyra could wake fully, the mercenaries rushed in. The first two lunged toward her. Their hands reaching, she gasped and cried out, but Kor was faster. The beast's tail whipped through the air like a hammer, striking both men and sending them crashing into the wall. The other two threw the chains at Kor. The restraints glowed with electric sparks, wrapping around his legs. The beast roared in fury, his massive body thrashing as the shock coursed through him. Sparks lit the dark shelter. Lyra screamed, "Kor!" She scrambled forward, trying to free him, but a mercenary grabbed her arm. Pulling her back roughly, Daniel moved in a flash. His blade struck the man's weapon aside, and his fist drove into the mercenary's chest. Dropping him to the floor, the leader shouted, "Hold the beast! Don't let him break free!" He swung another chain toward Kor's neck. Daniel lunged, grabbing the chain before it landed. The electric current burned into his hand, but he held on, gritting his teeth with a sharp pull. He yanked the chain from the man's grasp, then slammed his elbow into the attacker's jaw. Kor roared again, his glowing eyes blazing. With a furious shake, he snapped the restraints around his legs. The metal shattered under his strength. The mercenaries stumbled back in terror. The beast pounced, claws tearing into the ground. His massive body crashed into the leader, pinning him down. The man screamed, his weapon falling from his grip. The glowing red eyes of Kor burned inches from his face. Lyra rushed to Kor's side, her small hands pressed against his scales. "Stop, Kor, stop!" she cried. Her voice broke through the beast's fury. Slowly, the growl faded, and Kor pulled back, leaving the terrified leader shaking on the Ground, Daniel stood with his blade ready, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. He looked at the beaten mercenaries, their faces pale with fear. "Leave," he growled. "And tell your masters if they come again, they won't leave alive." The mercenaries did not argue. They scrambled out of the shelter, dragging their injured leader with them. Their plan had failed. Their courage broken, Lyra dropped to her knees beside Kor, tears running down her cheeks. She pressed her forehead against the beast's scales, whispering, "You're safe, we're safe." Daniel stepped closer, his burned hands still trembling from the electric shock. He knelt beside her, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "It's over," he said softly. "They won't try again." Tonight, she looked up at him, her violet eyes shining with tears. Her voice shook. "You fought for us. You could have run, but you didn't." He met her gaze, his expression calm but firm. "I told you. You're not alone anymore." Kor lowered his head beside them, letting out a deep rumble. Not of anger, but of approval. His massive eyes glowed faintly, as if accepting Daniel more than before. The bond between them was no longer just fragile. It had been tested in battle, and it had survived later. As the fire burned low, Lyra sat close to Daniel, her voice soft. "They will not stop. You know that, don't you? They will keep coming for him. For me, for you." Daniel nodded. "I know," he said, "but I've faced worse, and I'll keep facing them as long as it means protecting you both." Her heart tightened at his words. For so long, she had lived in fear, believing no one would ever stand beside her. Now, for the first time, she felt the weight of that fear lift, just a little. Outside, the city remained quiet, but the shadows were not gone. They would return, stronger and more dangerous. But for now, inside that small shelter, trust had turned into something greater, something powerful. The girl, the human, and the beast had survived their first true test together. And the bond between them was no longer just trust, it was unbreakable. The night after the attack was long and heavy. Daniel had not slept. He sat by the dying fire, his burned hand wrapped in cloth, his eyes fixed on the door. Every sound outside made him tense, but no one came. The mercenaries had fled. At least for now. Lyra sat against Kor's side, her silver hair falling over her face. She had cried until no tears were left. Now she stared quietly into the flames, her violet eyes troubled. She knew the attack was only the beginning. If word had spread this far, worse would come. Daniel finally broke the silence. They wanted him alive. He said softly, "Not to kill, but to capture. That means he's worth more than I thought." His eyes flicked toward Kor, who lay curled beside Lyra, his massive chest rising and falling with steady breaths. Lyra's hands tightened in her lap, her heart raced. She knew the truth she had hidden all her life, the truth no one was supposed to know. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "They know what he is." Daniel turned his gaze to her, calm but sharp. "And what is he?" She hesitated, her chest heavy. She had never told anyone, not even those who begged to know. But Daniel had fought for her, bled for her, and looked at Kor not with fear but with respect. She owed him the truth. Slowly, she lifted her head, her voice trembling. "Kor is not just a beast, he is a guardian." The words seemed to hang in the air. Daniel frowned slightly. "Guardian," he repeated. "What does that mean?" Lyra's eyes lowered. "Long ago, before my people built cities, before they ruled across the stars, the guardians lived. Beside us, they were protectors, born from the wild. They had power greater than armies. Their bond was with the pure-hearted, and only with them." Daniel listened carefully, his soldier's mind piecing the story together. "So they're sacred," he said, "not monsters." Her voice shook. "Yes, but fear twisted the story. Generations ago, the Guardians turned against our rulers. The leaders had grown cruel and corrupt. They used the Guardians for war, for conquest, for blood. But one day, the Guardians rebelled. They destroyed the thrones, burned the palaces. They ended the empire. My people never forgave them. They called them cursed, monsters of betrayal. Daniel sat in silence. The fire popped. Softly, his eyes studied Kor, the great beast who now breathed gently like a sleeping sentinel. So that's why they fear him, he said, not because of what he is, but because of what he represents. Lyra nodded, her voice breaking. I was only a child when I found him. The elders told me to run, to kill him, but I couldn't. He was alone, wounded, dying. I cared for him, I fed him, and from that day, he never left me. They said I was cursed, but he saved me again and again. He is not a curse. He is my family. Her hand shook as she spoke, her eyes shimmering with tears. For years, she had carried this truth in silence, her heart heavy with the burden. Now she let it spill out. Daniel leaned closer, his voice calm but steady. You did what no one else dared. You saw the truth, and now I see it too. Lyra looked up at him, her throat tight. But that is why they will never stop. The factions, the rulers, even the common people. They fear the return of the Guardians. They fear the change. If they learn you and Kor are bonded, they will hunt us forever. Daniel's jaw tightened, his eyes hardened like steel. Then let them come, he said. I've fought armies before, and I'll fight them again. They won't take him. And they won't take you. Her chest ached, her heart racing at his words. She wanted to believe. She wanted to hold on to the strength in his voice for the first time. The truth she had carried did not feel like a curse. It felt like hope. Kor stirred, his massive eyes opening, glowing faintly in the dying firelight. The beast lifted his head and looked between them. His gaze deep, almost knowing, he let out a low rumble. Not of warning, but of approval. Daniel met Kor's gaze, his hand resting on the hilt of his weapon. So, he said quietly, you're not just her protector, you're a symbol, and maybe it's time the galaxy remembers what a guardian truly is. Lyra's breath caught, her lips parted as she whispered, if you say those words, if you walk this path, you cannot turn back. You will be marked as cursed like me. Daniel gave a faint smile, one corner of his mouth lifting. Cursed, blessed, doesn't matter, he said. What matters is standing for what's right. Her throat tightened. A strange warmth spread through her chest. Stronger than fear, stronger than shame. She had always believed her path would end in loneliness. But now there was someone walking beside her. The fire finally burned down to glowing embers. The shelter grew dark and quiet. Yet in that darkness, a light had sparked. A forbidden truth had been spoken, and a bond had been sealed. Outside, the city stirred restlessly. Rumors grew, shadows moved, and enemies whispered in hidden places. The human, the girl, and the guardian had become a story no one could ignore. And though danger pressed closer with every heartbeat, something new had been born. Hope. The morning sun rose over the alien city. Its golden light washed over tall towers and empty streets. But the peace was an illusion. In the shadows, danger was gathering. Word had spread of the human who stood beside the alien girl and her terrifying beast. Whispers turned into anger. Anger into plans, and soon those who feared the Guardian came to destroy it. Inside the small shelter, Daniel prepared his armor. His hands moved with steady purpose, strapping the plates tight, checking his blade. He had faced battles before, but this one felt different. It was not just survival. It was about protecting something worth more than his life. Lyra watched him quietly, Her heart trembled with fear and something deeper she could not yet name. She had told him the forbidden truth, and instead of leaving, he stayed. He stood firm. As if her curse meant nothing, as if her guardian was not a monster, but a friend. Kor lifted his massive head. His glowing red eyes scanned the horizon through the cracks in the wall. His claws dug into the ground. Ready? The beast knew the fight was coming. Daniel finished preparing, then turned to Lyra, his voice calm but firm. "They're coming. I can feel it." Her violet eyes shimmered. "They will come with many," she whispered. "They will not stop until we are gone." Daniel stepped closer, resting a hand on her shoulder. His gaze steady. "Then we make our stand, and if this is the end, we end it together." Her chest tightened. Tears stung her eyes. She had never heard words like these before. Never had anyone chosen to stand beside her, and now, in this moment, she realized the truth she had been avoiding. She loved him. The attack came at midday. The ground shook as armored vehicles rolled through the streets. Mercenaries marched in rows, their weapons ready. Above them, small airships hovered, their engines humming. The city's citizens hid behind doors and windows, too afraid to witness the storm. The faction leader stood at the front, his face scarred, his eyes filled with hate. His voice echoed through the streets, "Bring out the girl and the beast, and kill the human who dares stand with them." Daniel stepped out of the shelter, his armor gleaming in the sunlight, his blade in his hand, his presence calm but unyielding. Beside him walked Lyra, her head high despite the fear in her chest, and towering behind them was Kor, his scales glowing, his red eyes burning like fire. Gasps spread through the streets as the people saw them, a human, an alien girl, and the guardian walking as one. The leader raised his hand. "Attack!" He roared. The mercenaries surged forward, weapons firing. Daniel moved fast, his blade flashing as he deflected strikes and cut through enemies. His movements were sharp, precise, each strike fueled not just by skill, but by purpose. Kor roared, the sound shaking the ground. The beast leapt into the fray, his massive claws tearing through armored soldiers. His tail swept aside entire groups. His jaws snapped and crushed weapons as if they were twigs. The air filled with screams of fear. Lyra stood behind them, her hands trembling, but she did not. "Run!" She shouted commands to Kor, guiding him, her voice strong. And the guardian obeyed with perfect trust. Daniel fought beside the beast, his movements flowing as if they were one. He struck where Kor could not reach, and Kor protected his back with terrifying strength. Together, they were unstoppable, but the enemy was many. Airships fired bolts of energy into the street. Explosions shook the ground. Daniel was thrown back, his armor scorched. He groaned but rose to his feet, determination burning in his eyes. The leader strode forward, holding a massive weapon charged with energy, his voice twisted with hate. "The beast dies today, and the human with it." He fired, a blinding blast of energy shot toward Kor. Lyra screamed, "No!" She ran forward, throwing herself between them, but Daniel was faster. He leaped, his blade raised, and struck the blast aside with a shower of sparks. The energy scorched his armor, but he stood tall. Kor's roar shook the sky. The beast charged, crashing into the leader with unstoppable force. The weapon shattered. The ground split beneath the weight of the impact. When the dust cleared, the leader lay defeated, his followers scattering in fear. Silence fell. The mercenaries who remained fled into the shadows. The people peeked from their hiding places, their eyes wide as they looked upon the scene. The feared beast had not destroyed them, but saved them, and at his side stood a human and a girl. Daniel lowered his blade, breathing heavily. His body was bruised and burned, but his eyes still shone with resolve. He turned to Lyra, who stood frozen. Tears falling down her face, she rushed to him, her hands trembling as she touched his armor. "You protected us," she whispered. "You risked everything. Why? Why would you do this for me?" Daniel looked at her, his voice quiet but steady. "Because you and Kor are worth protecting. Because I see you, not a curse, not a monster, but someone who deserves to live free." Her heart broke and healed all at once. The truth burst from her lips before she could stop it. "I love you." Daniel's eyes softened. He reached out, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. A faint smile touched his lips. "And I love you." Kor lowered his massive head beside them, his glowing eyes calm. He let out a deep rumble, almost like approval. The Guardian had chosen not just Lyra, but the human too. The people who watched began to whisper, but the whispers were no longer of fear. They were of wonder, of hope. For the first time, they saw not a monster, but a protector, not a curse, but a bond that could change everything. Lyra leaned into Daniel's embrace, her tears falling freely. She had lived her life believing she was alone, cursed, untouchable, but now she knew the truth. She was not alone. She had a guardian, and she had a human who loved her, and together they would walk into a future the galaxy had never imagined.